So you establish an aim and you negotiate to see if that's shared, and then you start listening to see if you can build a cooperative strategy.
Yeah, and a lot of times this is where people get caught up, because as long as we're going to the same place, we could take your road or my road, and there's advantages and disadvantages of both. And by the way, we don't really know what the advantages and disadvantages are because we can't see the future. So
you don't want to get too constrained in your insistence.
Yeah, I don't want to get too caught up. Normally, what's making me want to take my road instead of your road is just my ego. And I think my idea is better.
That's not a good game.
Not a good game. No. And so when we talk about,
you could ask, here's why I think my idea might be better, but I'd be very interested to hear why you think that might not be true, right? Because maybe it isn't, and I'd like to know, actually.
And my default mode, my default setting is I want to use your idea. Whether you're my boss, my peer, or my subordinate, my default is I want to use your idea instead of mine. That's my goal. So when you come to me and you say, I think we should do it like this, my immediate response, which I've trained and practiced, is, okay, why should we do it Jordan's way and not mine?
That's good. Well, that's good. I've done that particularly with my kids, because I run a couple of businesses with them. And my default there certainly is, like, if you've got a plan and it's a reasonable plan and you've worked it out and you're motivated by it, how about I leave you the hell alone because you've already done something really good. Right. And then
I call it the minimally viable plan. If you come to me with a minimally viable plan that it sounds like it can work,
and that you'd implement,
we're going to go with it.
Yeah, well, that's because you've solved the motivational problem, right? Yeah. Well, and it's also, that's also how you optimally train partners and subordinates, is if they have a minimally viable plan and it's clear that they're going to implement it and they implement it, then they learn to implement and they learn to modify their plan on the fly, and then they get good at doing that. That meta skill, right, which is the meta skill of making a plan and modifying it on the fly. You definitely want to encourage people to develop that ability. Definitely.
And by the way, when I listen to you, you listen to me. So when I say, hey, Jordan, that sounds good, let's go ahead and execute it that way. I got one question.
Yeah.
And now you actually listen to my question.
Yeah,
as opposed to me, we're doing it my way. And by the way, here's another thing you need to think about.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear any of it. So
yeah, because you've already taken a pretty good blow by that point.
100%.
Yeah, well, right. And if you make an offer to someone like that, the probability that if they're reasonable people, the first thing they want to do is reciprocate is extremely high, right? So you cede as much territory as you can, assuming that you've agreed on the aim. Yeah. And it's also, you can negotiate the aim too. You can say, I find this vision of possibility compelling. It's worth sacrificing for, worth putting some effort in. But, first, are you interested? And if not, well, then we can talk about some other things. But if you are, are there elements of it that you think might be altered that would make it even more compelling to you? That's certainly what you want in a partner or someone who works for you, clearly. Yeah. You want them optimally motivated. When I set up my businesses with my kids, I said, when we were figuring out the business end of it, I said, well, I have a lot of marketing clout, and you want me bought in, and you want me to prioritize what I'm doing with you, given all the other things I'm doing. So you have to remember that. But other than that, I want you to bring me the deal that you're maximally thrilled by, right? So that's the goal. And then, well, if someone brings you that deal and it turns out to be acceptable, there's no enforcement requirement, because it's their thing. It's their thing. And then you can have a piece of many things, and that's a very good deal, and shepherd them and help people develop along the way and learn a bunch. And so I don't know how it is that we ever got the idea that the boss was the person who barked out orders. I mean, no one who's effective, if you have someone that's working for you that requires that, they're either really immature and still in that disciplinary phase, or you shouldn't be working with them, right? If I have to force you to do something, we aren't suited for each other.
No. compelled labor is not what you should be looking for.
Right, that's slaves. Yeah, you don't want slaves. And why not? Because they're not very effective, and it's no fun being a tyrant.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. There's a whole philosophy in warfare, which is the strategy of the indirect approach, which means instead of me assaulting you head on, I am going to maneuver around to your flank,
right.
and attack you from an area where you're not reinforced. And I always joke with people that we learn the opposite of the indirect approach. We learn that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Mm-hmm. So if I've got a problem with Jordan, what I should do is go, hey, Jordan, I noticed that in the meeting today, you talked like this. I didn't like that.
Yeah, right.
And that seems like it's the best way to handle things. It's direct, take that direct approach.
Yeah.
But when I use that direct approach and I attack you, I attack your ego, what's going to happen? Your ego defenses are going to come up. You're not going to want to listen. You're going to be argumentative about the whole thing.
Yeah, we're in a power struggle then.
What'd you call it?
Primate dominance hierarchy struggle.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yes. We don't want to get into
No, we don't. No. Unless your goal is primate dominance, right? Which is not, well, that's a better goal than abject failure, but it's not the highest goal. No. And a problem like that, if there's a meeting and it goes sideways, the most appropriate approach to that, I would say, is certainly not to ignore it. Although if it only happened once, you could probably file it away for further consideration and not act immediately on it unless it happened again, right? Because you don't want to jump the gun. But my approach in a situation would be something like, I was watching that meeting, and here's a bunch of things that went well as far as I'm concerned. But I thought this one part, to me, seemed to slip sideways. And the discussion got counterproductive, and I'm wondering if you saw that and what you think happened. Mm-hmm. And that's that embedding it in a more positive message. That's also extremely helpful, because lots of times too, you see when people are negotiating and they're on a trajectory of success, they forget to start the discussion with that. It's like, given that we're on a trajectory of success, and these are a bunch of things that you've done right and we've done right, here's something we might be able to improve. Well, that's a lot easier on people. And it's certainly not a strategy of avoidance. And then it does have that investigative quality, because you don't know, right? And sometimes you think things went sideways, and that was actually the person's intent, because they felt that someone needed to be corrected, and maybe they're right. Maybe it was time to produce a bit of an emotional disruption, and there was a strategy behind it. You don't know. So
that's why it has to be an earnest question,
Yeah.
If I come to you and say, hey, why'd you act like that in the meeting?
Yeah.
Why'd you dress down Fred in the meeting? That was uncalled for.
Right.
That's just terrible. But if I say, hey, I noticed you went pretty hard on Fred.
Yeah, right.
Was there something going on that I didn't know about? I was sitting there I was a little bit surprised by it. Is there something going on between you and Fred that is not right now? Is there anything I can do to help it out?
Yeah.
And that is a totally different approach. And getting back to the indirect approach, obviously it took me 4 sentences to ask you that question.
But you provide some context. And you also don't make the person into an enemy immediately.
Of course.
Because why would you do that?
Yep.
To show you're right. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, showing you're right has a cost.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Being right has a cost. Just being right sometimes has a cost.
Yeah.
How many times you get in an argument or a discussion with your wife and you get to prove that you're right. Good job.
Yeah.
How's
I
dinner?
know there are hierarchical levels of right.
Yeah.
Right. You can be right locally and pretty wrong contextually.
Yeah.
Right. And so that questioning approach seems to be much better in taking the